What do homeschoolers need to do to be more feared and more respected in politics? This video is the start of a short series of videos I intend to do on that topic, followed by much more in-depth podcasts on these points in the future. But for now, the legislative session kicks off in January for most states. There are a few exceptions like Ohio and Pennsylvania. And I fully expect to see bills filed in several states that would regulate and legislate homeschooling. So it's important that we get our minds in the right space to fight more effectively in the coming months, especially when things kick off in January. If you've seen any of my other videos, you've seen here at the Homeschool Freedom Coalition that we want new methods and new tactics in the fight to defend homeschooling. This series is just that. We were going to break some of that down for you, what it looks like. We need to get a lot of homeschoolers on the same page and quickly ahead of this legislative session. So this is the first training module on Politics 101, and I'm just going to give you a little teaser. We're not going to mention the Constitution in the first 6 hours. I mean, I'm mostly kidding because these videos won't be nearly that long. But this video series does have one goal: to move homeschoolers out of the realm of theory. We all know what the Constitution says, and into practice. How to go from good principles and ideas to getting good results in our state capital and in our legislatures all over the country. So without further explanation, I'm going to jump in and start by defining what politics is and isn't. And you probably haven't heard it explained this way before. Politics is not about the common good of man. It's not about better lives for our kids or happy communities. It's not about making things, better for as many people as possible. It's not about ending poverty. It's not about educating children. Politics is none of those things. Politics is the adjudication of power. It is nothing more than the question of who rules whom. That's it. That's the whole thing. Politics is just who is going to rule over whom. Whose ideas are going to hold the day. Whose ideas are going to be imposed on everyone else. Now, if we want to put this in biblical terms, this does not contradict the Bible, but we're told in Romans 13 that the ruler bears the sword they might punish evildoers. Well, if politics is just the adjudication of power, then good and godly leaders will bear the sword to punish evildoers. If your party is in power, and I don't mean party meaning Republican versus Democrat, I mean your ideas. If they're in power, you've done politics well, and your ideas are in power, and you will bear the sword to punish evildoers with that power. And this, at a national level, this might look like locking up criminals or not having 35-time felons wandering the streets like New York State has to deal with. You're gonna not force one group of people to pay for the surgeries of another group of people, right? So if our ideas are in power, and again, this isn't left versus right party politics per se, sometimes it looks like that, and it may look like that in your state. But really, if you take this into homeschooling and say the adjudication of power is people who love homeschooling are making legislation or people who hate homeschooling are making legislation. This idea of we're all in it for the greater good or we all just love kids, that's not how politics works. Politics is the adjudication of power. If our side, meaning pro-homeschooling legislators, are not ruling, then anti-homeschooling legislators are in charge, and they are going to make legislation that we have to live under. So if you're in power, you've done politics well. You've figured out the game. If you are not in power, if your ideas are not in power, then the other side has figured out how to adjudicate power better than you have. And they will punish you because they perceive you to be the evildoer in their system. So I don't think anything I'm saying is unbiblical. It's just not how we normally think or talk about politics. We usually keep it at a theoretical level. So just to quickly summarize what this means, it means that nothing is broken in our system. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Politics is merely the game of deciding who gets to rule and who gets ruled. We like to think that politics is noble or neutral. That's a myth. Or it's about policy debates. But underneath all of that, it is just this: who commands and who obeys. It's a power struggle by definition. And so winning at politics means your ideas are in power. And losing at politics means your ideas are being thwarted or crushed by people who do hold power. That is the field that we play on. So when we engage politically, we are not doing it so we can be heard or make a difference or get along or do the most good for the most people. We have to engage, and we do engage here at the Homeschool Freedom Coalition, because the other side wants to rule your family. They want to rule your children, your conscience, what your children are taught, what they believe about God, what they believe about our country, what they believe about every topic. They want to form your child's worldview and how your child views the world and what your child thinks is important and what your child loves and what your child hates. They want to have control over that because they want to control the minds of our children. And so it is obvious to me and anyone who works in legislative politics that the other side totally understands the game. They totally realize that this is an adjudication of power issue and that we are the bad guys and they are here to punish us and they are the good guys. And their goal is to make as many children as possible believe what they believe. That is also our goal as homeschool parents, as homeschoolers. Our goal is to get as many of our children to believe what we believe. And so we are engaged in politics. We are in a power struggle to adjudicate power. And this, again, I hope you've noticed, we're not mentioning the Constitution or the three branches of government or any of these other, government books that I did in high school. Thank you, Abeka. Thank you, all these, good companies that taught me how the system was designed to work, how it was laid out by, the founders. How it was designed was a way, a method of adjudicating power, they thought. But at the end of the day, politics is still just the adjudication of power. And so hopefully, this might seem very on the surface, okay, well, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. This is a new way of looking at things. Okay, so it's a power struggle. Okay. But I hope that you realize that if you go into the state house, if you go into the House or the Senate and you're meeting with legislators or your representative and you have the idea that you're there to teach them something or educate them about homeschooling or tell them how great homeschoolers are, they are not in the game of being educated, nor are they in the game of educating. They are adjudicating power, and they have it and you don't. And so the sooner that homeschoolers get their minds around they have power, we don't. Like they're the guys in the room, right? Well, how do we get power? And it doesn't necessarily mean running for office. I'm happy to talk about, I'm sure we'll get to that. But the point is, if you walk in there thinking this is an education game and this is a convincing game and not a power adjudication game, you've lost before you've opened your mouth. And so when we walk into state capitals, when we email our legislators, when we call our representatives, when we do any of this, you have to recognize this is an adjudication of power situation. This is not, I need to teach him how great homeschooling is. You're playing a totally different game then, if that's the tactic. And so I hope maybe this is great for you. You love this. This is the kind of content you want. Maybe this is old hat and you don't see anything interesting about this. But I promise if you stick around, we have some videos coming once we've gotten these basic definitions out of the way that you will find extremely interesting. I think you're going to find our tactics very engaging, very different. And I hope that you'll join us in fighting for homeschooling in these huge, new, different fights that are coming. And I hope that you'll join us in using these new and more effective tactics. Thanks so much for your time. Stay free, stay the course.